Welcome, everyone, to Huddle Up with Matias Bueno, Episode 7. Today's guest is former Canada West All-Star, most outstanding receiver in the PFC in 2016, CJFL All-Canadian with the Calgary Colts, assistant receiver coach with the Manitoba Bisons, second-team All-Canadian with the Manitoba Bisons, Dylan Schrot. Dylan, thanks for being on Huddle Up.
Thanks for having me.
So, Dylan, let's get the big elephant out of the room right away. You had an excellent career with the Bisons, and you were a 23, 24-year-old that played, and now U Sports, with the results of the pandemic, have opted to cancel the opportunity for 24-year-olds this year to have an extension of eligibility due to the COVID-19. What are your thoughts, and what does it mean to have a fifth year taken away as a university player, and how important is it to have a fifth year in CIS?
Well, it's super unfortunate for all these guys that are being penalized, in their final years for something that is extremely large out of their control. And like for me, like for my fifth year, like that was one of the best years of my life too. And it's unfortunate that, some guys are having that year taken away. Hopefully U Sport will kind of, realize that they made a mistake and go back and fix it. But, we'll see what happens.
In your fifth year at the Manitoba Bisons, you exploded and were a Canada West All-Star and second-team All-Canadian and had an outstanding year. And to quote Coach Dobie, what he had said in our coaching theory class is that you were the player he saw with the most perfect regiment and performance possible for a player of your size and stature and with your experience. What was it about your fifth year that really made everything come together and do so well for you?
Oh, probably a combination of all the little details that I'd done over the years and all the hours that I'd put in, and I guess the stars aligning and everything coming together. And obviously, I was fortunate to have a lot of great teammates around me, and it was it was a great experience for sure. And it's hard to pinpoint one thing because there's so much that goes into a football season, it was a great year, man. It was a great year.
So you talk about all the hours and details you put in and the amount of preciseness with your training regiment. How has your training routine developed over the years, and when have you felt that it really made a huge impact on your performance from the time you started playing, even from the time you started playing junior?
Over the years, when I was first starting out, obviously the focus was, okay, get bigger, get faster, get stronger, hit the weights and become just an overall better athlete. And, as I got older, I started to realize that, yes, that's important, but also, diet is very important. Sleep's very important. Your mental training. Like I started researching the benefits of, meditation and concentrated breathing. And, I'd felt that really, like the combination of those three things really elevated my game and took me to the next level. But yeah, a lot of this growth and development occurred when I was playing in junior. And, it was after I tore my ACL when I was playing junior, where I really had to step back, evaluate my training methods, evaluate all the nuances of my preparation, and really try to fine tune all those details. And so obviously, as unfortunate as that experience was, I'm grateful for that, because it really it forced me to grow as a person and a player.
Absolutely, and especially considering such a tragic thing that can happen with football players, and tearing an ACL can be really riveting and sometimes backbreaking mentally for players. And you had taken that and turned it into a positive from a negative experience and really focused on the mental side of things. Talk a little bit about your training regimen in terms of the sports psych aspect of playing football and why your mental concentration is so important, especially at a position like receiver.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, again, as I just, kind of alluded to, like I started really diving into meditation after the ACL. And I guess essentially the goal of it was to build up my focus in adverse moments. So I would do what's called mindfulness meditation. And so, when you're meditating, it's natural that your thoughts are going to drift away, right? Think of like clouds passing over the sky, right? So essentially what it is you're trying to notice these thoughts and then bring your focus and your attention back to your breath. And it's a constant cycle of redirection of your attention. Okay. So how that relates to a game or a practice, if you're extremely tired or you just had a bad rep or, whatever the case, your thoughts are obviously focused on that. And so the meditation kind of trains you to reallocate that focus back to the present moment. So that'd be, okay, next rep. All right. What's my responsibility on this play? Okay, that's my sole focus on this. How am I going to beat my defender on this play? Right? It's tuning out those negative thoughts and the negative self-talk and just redirecting your focus back to the present. And so it was a combination of that, and then also visualizing success on the football field and taking, as the coaches would call, mental reps, right? And so, I'm going to visualize running a corner against off-man coverage, or sitting in zones when I'm running a dig, or like everything you can think of in a responsibilities of a receiver. I tried to mentally prepare and put myself in those situations so that when it arose in the game, like your brain kind of feels like it's already been in that situation, so you can just react at that point.
When was it as well that you first started to really feel that your mindfulness meditation was more powerful than you could have imagined? Because you talked about how it had taken form and shape after you had suffered the ACL injury, and the apex of your success really started with the 2016 season with the Calgary Colts, arguably a team that should have won the Canadian Bowl. When was it? Was it during that season that you felt, wow, like this is really something? Or was it a little earlier, even before you stepped on the field?
Actually, definitely was that season. And it was that season where I really started to develop this mental training aspect of my game. I guess to pinpoint like an exact moment of like when I realized how powerful it could be. So earlier in the year, I had a drop in Regina, and and this was in the end zone, and had I made the play, we most likely would have won the game. It was less than a minute left, and I was extremely hard on myself on obviously with the outcome of that game. And throughout the rest of the year, I went back to that play and I visualized success on that play, And, sure enough, the playoff game, we're playing against the Huskies, I believe. And it was the exact same play. And, we were down a touchdown with a minute left. And sure enough, the ball was thrown to me. I was able to make the play, and our team won the game. And, it was weird how it just, came full circle for me in that moment. And it was kind of at that point when I realized, like, wow, okay, like there's some merit to this a little bit. And maybe that's just me being superstitious as an athlete. that's also very possible. But yeah, it's probably there at that point that I really realized it's powerful.
Well, my question would be, is it superstitious, or is it routine, or is it visualization that comes full circle? Because from what it sounds like in that moment, that the repeated visualization of you having succeeded in the moment where you had initially failed helped you maybe like subconsciously when you were back in that same moment to realize, you know, I can succeed at this play and I have seen it, so I will succeed. And especially the Huskies and the Prairies, like there's no sisters of the poor. They're all good teams. They're all tough. And their rival, it's a Battle of Alberta, high stakes. So maybe would that have been a part of why you were successful, is that visualization really isn't just superstition, but more so it's an actual tool that people can use and should use in sports more often?
I'd agree with that for sure. And you know, when I'd sought out a couple of sports psychologists actually and talked with them about it. And the one I had talked to, she had told me to create the moment and make it feel as real as possible, so that you get, you know, some sort of kinesthetic sensations as well when you are, you know, having those mental rehearsals. And you know, it's like anything, it's repetition, right? And so, yeah, I mean, sure, some of it might be superstition, but I think there is also merit in taking those mental reps and preparing your mind to succeed in those moments, so that, you know, you don't have any anxieties going into that. You can just stay solely focused on the present moment and executing in that present moment.
Absolutely. And I know you were a part of actually the sports psychology class that I was in online in the summer a few years ago. Talk a little bit about what you found fascinating about sports psychology and how useful you think it is as a tool for athletes going forward, whether it comes to researching or reading about mindfulness or reading about the different traits of the negatives and positives that can happen with a person's mental game and how they should learn to recognize it.
Sorry, hold on. Can you repeat that question? Sorry.
No worries. So talk about a little bit about, can you talk a little bit about sports psychology in terms of what you have learned from it through diving into the subject, and how you believe that, or how you believe it could have positively affect athletes in terms of recognizing the negatives and positives of your psychosis when it comes to playing sports?
Okay. I think the biggest thing for athletes to realize is that everybody operates in a different way, right? So, you know, for someone like me, I execute best when I'm calm, cool, and collected, and I'm focused just solely on my job, and, you know, I'm not worried about my opponent. There are other players, other guys that, you know, they need more higher stakes, or like they thrive on elevation and intensity and energy and all of that. And so I would say, you know, for a young athlete looking to improve their mental training game is, I guess, first and foremost, like, know how you operate and when you're most successful in competition. And you know, from there you can kind of, you know, I guess, game plan what type of mental training you want to do. You know, if you're someone that you know, is more like, you know, more energetic and more intense on the field, you know, maybe when you are, you know, visualizing these things, you're trying to elevate your heart rate, and you're trying to, like, put yourself in those situations. Sorry.
No worries, man. No worries.
I had something else. I just lost my train of thought. Yeah, I know you can edit some of this stuff out. So anyway, okay, back to it. Another aspect of you know, the training, and, you know, that I think is overlooked is the mental side of the game. And, you know, over the years, you know, strength and conditioning is taking, or has taken some you know, some leaps and bounds to get to where it is today, and the training methods that are used. And, you know, you see a lot of nutritionists now on sports teams, and I really believe that the mental side of the game is going to be that next avenue that kind of takes the next step and helps athletes to further their development. Not that it's not happening right now. I just think that it's going to become a little bit more of a focus, down the line and in the future.
Absolutely. And I even have seen it firsthand myself with football teams, as well as other athletes and people who are learning about sports psychology and learning about their nutrition matters so much, and their thoughts. What are you visualizing? What are you thinking about? What are you focusing on? What are you eating? How are you sleeping? And I really think, I guess, to allude to, another sport example would be Michael Jordan, right? The Last Dance documentary was huge in terms of really getting behind the scenes as to what he was thinking in many moments that we would have watched on television and tried to interpret from ourselves. I know that his trainer, Tim Grover, had appeared in the documentary and talked about how he had helped Michael with changing his mindset to what you should be training, right? Guys in the 80s used to think if you were big and bulky and looked like the Hulk, then it was going to screw up your shot. But it was the only way actually that he could be able to beat the Detroit Pistons was by being stronger than them and not just being a better shooter because they were physically tough. And then when they finally got over the hump, it changed the game of basketball and everyone started working out more and everyone started trying to get bigger and stronger. And it wasn't just a matter of who was the skinniest looking guy that could still shoot the ball like crazy, right? And I know we actually had a conversation about the book Tim Grover wrote, Relentless, and how important it is. Talk a little bit about what that book means to you in terms of your preparation and what you think it means to people who prepare for any success in life in general outside of sports.
Yeah, I'd say, the biggest takeaway that I got from that book was to never be satisfied with any achievement, and to kind of, check your ego and just realize that there's always more, right? So, hey, that's great that, you were a PFC All-Star and you got CJFL All-Canadian. Okay, well, what next? Okay, well, all right, well, this is now my goal. Okay, sweet. Like, okay, now you're Canada West All-Star, and again, you're All-Canadian again. All right, awesome. Like, congrats, buddy. But what are you doing next? Like, what now? And so, yeah, kind of like I said, like, kind of checking your ego along the way and continuing to set goals, and never being satisfied with any end result.
And how you translated that into your football career, because obviously the unfortunate reality that many football players will have to accept one day is that the end is nigh. It'll always come, whether it's 3 years after high school, or whether it's 20 years in the CFL, or if you go to the NFL, no matter what. So how did your focus shift from the time that you were in a make or break situation with the CFL to when you knew, okay, now my playing career is done? And what went into that? Because I know it can be very difficult for guys, but since you're very adamant with your preparation, your training, and your mental state, what did you do to handle that transition?
I'll be honest, that was a very tough transition, and it's a tough period for any athlete, and anyone who says that's easy or says that it's easy is lying. And but no, I actually got into coaching with the Bisons very soon after, and I started focusing more on my social work that I've been doing for a living, and again, like, kind of stepping outside myself, checking my ego, and then recalibrating and setting life goals now outside of football. Not that I didn't have those before, but now it's kind of just a shift in focus onto, okay, I know my playing career is done. Okay, what now? How can I become the best version of myself, and how can I give back to the football community? And so, even getting involved with youth football programs, and just doing whatever I can to give back, and just, like I said, becoming a better person and a better version of myself.
So talk a little bit about your experience that you had with the Bombers and what it was like when gotten the opportunity and what the environment felt like at the CFL in comparison to maybe what you had thought or expected of it to be like, since you had spent years with the Bisons and you'd also spent a few years practicing with the Stampeders prior. So was the Bombers not much of a big shift for you, or what was that whole ordeal like?
Um, I was, again, I was trying to find the balance of being grateful for the experience and living in the moment, but also, kind of like I said with the Tim Grover stuff, not being satisfied and striving for more, and being relentless, as he likes to say. But in terms of the actual transition, I knew what to expect, in terms of the athletes. They're bigger, faster, stronger. They're professionals. They're obviously they're the cream of the crop. They're great football players, and so I wasn't surprised by that at all. I felt like I knew what to expect. But at the end of the day, it's about execution at that point and the very fine details. And then not even just in terms of your preparation and your training, like yes, but also the nuances of route running and where to be pre-snap and when to motion and where you're releasing, like just inside the hash or just outside the hash, or are you 3 yards from the tackle or are you 5 yards from the tackle, like all of these terms that I had never really heard of before. And so it was a whole new element now that I had to study for the playbook. And it took me a little bit to adjust to that. And, on top of that, like I was a late add to training camp as well on the third day, I want to say. But no, man, it was a great experience. I'm super, obviously, I'd still like to be playing, but I'm still thrilled with how it went.
And of course, for those who may not know, watching us, listening out there, the big moment being in the preseason game against Edmonton when you caught the touchdown pass from Brian Bennett. Talk about that whole play. What was the feeling? What was the play call? What route were you supposed to run? And what was going through your mind the entire time? Or was it just an absolute blur?
So the play call was 764 Voodoo Denver Y stutter. And so I was the Y doing the stutter. So it was Ace week. And so, okay, for those that might not know, it was 3 receivers to the boundary side and 2 receivers to the field side. And so I was the most inside slot. I had a dig to a vertical. And the funny part about this play too is it was the 3-minute warning before this play. So, there's a bit of a break. We're all standing around in the huddle, and, I'm trying not to get too psyched out or psych myself out about this play. And so I guess to kind of relieve the tension, I go to the guys and I was like, hey, like, when I score here, someone come set a screen for me and I'm going to, pick and roll Sally and put up a shot, kind of just joking around. And, so we run the play and I was fortunate, beat my defender. Bennett throws a nice ball. I kind of bobble it going into the end zone, but, catch is a catch. And at that point, emotion took over. Celebration went right out the window. And, yeah, man, I don't know if I'll ever feel anything like that again in my life. It was surreal for sure. Probably like 10 seconds there where it felt like the 10 years of preparation and hard work was, it all came together and it felt worth it, I guess, from that moment. And, that's something I'll cherish for the rest of my life for sure.
And I can only imagine that, it's it happens so fast and you don't even realize how crazy it is in that moment that you just forget about everything else and you just black out, and you're so in the moment with raw emotion that it just overcomes you more than you ever could have imagined. And I remember from watching that clip, I was like, man, like that was me, you know, in that situation. I don't even know what I would do, man. You just, like you said, all the years of preparation and ups and downs and everything will just, the emotions will automatically account for it in a split second and take over and automatically do something for you that is just self-programmed. You won't even have to worry about what celebration or what you're going to do, because you're so filled with raw emotion that you're not even thinking about anything else. And do you still have that football up in your house?
I do. It's actually it's sitting in my parents' basement right now. Yeah, I've got it in a little case. You know, the first CFL catch, first CFL touchdown. Yeah, well, obviously that's something I'll hope to keep for the rest of my life for sure.
Absolutely, man. And obviously no one likes, you know, being cut, and no one likes the feeling of having to look for another team or a job when it comes to football. So how did you relish with the hard news of being released in comparison to you having given literally everything you got? Scoring a touchdown in a preseason game is, especially of that magnitude, of that length, is not as common as people would think it is, because there's so much variance with the personnel during a preseason game that if you score a touchdown, that is everything that you could do and then some. So what was the feeling like when you were given the news that you were released, even after your performance in the Edmonton game?
Well, it's obviously it was like heartbreaking to a degree. Um, I think you know, a huge factor of, I guess, of me not pursuing football as hard as, you know, some might think I should have, you know, after the fact was due to, you know, lingering injuries from over the years. And yes, you know, I did prepare you know, very hard over the years, and, you know, a lot of hours went into, you know, keeping the body right. But I mean, essentially, I felt like I stepped outside myself, and I tried to evaluate just who I was as a player as a whole. You know, at my stature, am I going to be a special teamer in the league? You know, most likely not. And I think what a lot of young athletes don't realize is that if you're a Canadian player in the league, you know, 90% of the time, 80% of the time, like that is what you're drafted to be, or that's what you're assigned to be, is you know, a special teamer. And, you know, maybe you grow into a starter role. And, you know, did I see myself eventually becoming a starter like 2-3 years down the road? You know, maybe. But yeah, I had to be very, you know, honest with myself. And it's yeah, anyway, so there's a lot of factors, you know, that there was that part of it, you know, being honest with just who I was as a player. And if I wanted to, you know, put, like, I'm going to call it what it is, put my health on the line to, you know, bash my head on special teams. You know, it is what it is. So that part of it. And then also, you know, the kind of years of injury that your body goes through. And I'll be honest, like, you know, my body was pretty beat up from that 2018 season. And then I mean, I was playing through an injury during that whole training camp as well. And so, you know, a combination of all of that, for me, and, you know, this is my personal experience, for me, you know, I decided it wasn't worth it for me anymore. And I was content with stepping away from the game and starting the next chapter of my life. And, you know, hey, some people might feel different, and some people maybe feel that I should have adopted that, you know, that mindset of, nope, like, you got to keep pushing, and, you know, whatnot. But like I said, man, I'm content with my decision. And I walked away from the game with having no concussions and my health intact. And to me, like that's what's most important.
Absolutely. And obviously all good things come to an end, and it's really difficult sometimes for people to face that reality. And I think even from having read Tim Grover's book, Relentless, one of the things he talks about in it is people are so scared of getting that high and getting to the top and putting in that effort, because if they fall, it'll kill them. And sometimes, quite literally, it does in terms of a person's health. And you look at football and the whole ordeal with concussions over the last several years, and not just in football too, hockey as well has been a big proponent of the questioning of how serious and how worthwhile these life-altering injuries are to people after they're done their playing career. And especially when it comes from that, you're right, you're a Canadian, you're on special teams, financially, like you're not doing this for the money, but like unfortunate situations happen in the league. I'm sure you know of some examples. I'm not going to name any, but like of guys who suffer major injury, Players Association only covers a little bit, and then they may just default to activities that are not legal or not appropriate for them to be able to continue forward, that get them in way more trouble. But it was all in the name of football. But was it worth it? If you were putting yourself on the line in terms of your life and everything you're doing just to play football, when do you draw the line? When do you get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm done? Because one of the things, especially that Tim Grover talks about in that book, is that this mindset of, being like a Kobe Bryant, everyone's like, oh, like Mamba mentality, or Michael Jordan, like those guys were literally psychotic to be successful. Like, honestly, I would not want to be like Michael Jordan. I respect him and I think he's a tremendous athlete. But from now what we see in the Last Dance documentary, people saying, oh, Michael Jordan was such a jerk to his teammates and he was actually mean and he was this and he was that. Well, that's what it took for him to be successful. And that's what worked for him. And when people try to emulate that, I don't think people understand the implications or ramifications of those results all the time, right? Are you ready to be like psycho and pushing your teammates and going crazy to get to the top? What if you don't get there? Will you just keep going? When will you know when to stop? And I think a lot of those questions can make people feel as existential crises as football players and also other athletes, because they're still stuck in that mode of, I'm a football player or I'm a basketball player and I'm not going to give this up. And it'll never leave me. But I think I've seen this post on social media circulate many times. When athletes stop playing a high-level sport, it's like one of two deaths in your life. It's like a death. You're dying. You are not who you were before. And I had to experience that myself as well. And I remember when I ended my career, like I got cut by the Bisons. And before that training, like that spring camp, I went in there saying, the last game I played several months ago could have been the last time I ever step on a football field competitively. Could be the last time. And, I have to live with that, whether I like it or not. And I think it was definitely very hard at first having to come to terms with that. But I think that there's always, the universe or God or whatever you want to believe in that will show you some sort of sign that says, hey, this was meant for you, or it wasn't in the long term. And now you get this. And to transition, what have you enjoyed the most about your life after football thus far in terms of playing? Have you enjoyed coaching the most? Have you enjoyed your social work? Or what things have you now looked forward to the most to succeed at in the next part of your life?
Like I kind of mentioned it before, but, trying to give back to the football community. So, obviously being the assistant coach with the Bisons and, helping out with youth programs like Recruit Ready and, the odd, like camp here and there. That it's really enjoyable to me to be able to try to, pass along some knowledge to the younger generation and, to kind of step back a little bit actually too, in terms of leaving the game. And you kind of alluded to the mindset of the Kobe's and the Michaels. I think, what a lot of people need to realize too is, I shouldn't say realize, but think about is what is your value system, right? Like, what do you value the most in life? is it competition? Is it winning? Is it all of like everything that goes into sacrificing for that? Or is it more of, maybe spending time with your family, or, living on your own terms, or whatever you want to call it? I think that's another important question that athletes need to ask. And, and I think they also need to realize that there is life after football, or after any sport, really, and yes, when you are done playing, you will go through a bit of an identity crisis, because if you get to that level of being a student athlete at a university, or even, obviously like a pro athlete, you hold that identity very close to yourself. And so, kind of like you said, it's like a first death almost. But, that experience allowed me, again, to kind of, step away, ask myself these questions, and, try to not be as, I guess, focused on myself, and try to really uplift others around me. And I think that is a very rewarding feeling in itself as well. So, right now, working in social work and coaching, I'm super happy and super content with my day-to-day life right now. And I'm excited for what the future has in store as well.
Absolutely. And I think, the point I really like that you made there is about that act of uplifting, and that can be done and achieved through many avenues. It may not necessarily have to be through being a football player. It can be through coaching. It can be through volunteering. It can be through social work. It can be through other things. And I think that it is important for people who play high-level sports to be able to understand that there will be a life after their sport, no matter how high they play. And even you look at with the CFL, right? What's the situation like? We should be a third of the way through the CFL season, and we've played 0 games.
And the players haven't been paid at all.
Exactly. And guys have gotten this much money. So the very little money that CFL players get already in the first place, in comparison to NFL players, are now getting absolutely 100% less than that. And yet they still have to live life. The world hasn't gone, hey, time out. You can just exist in time and space until we figure this out. You look at the situation with James Wilder Jr., I don't blame him. Why are you going to wait around for something that's clearly not making you super rich, even if you're playing, for it to resume if you got life to live? The meter's not going to stop running in the taxi. You got to go do something else. You got to figure it out. You got to take care of your family. You got to do what you have to do, whether it is taking care of a family or not, yourself, whomever. You got to go do it. And if you don't, then, train's still going to leave the station, man. Like, it's not going to sit there and wait for you. And so this idea of life after football is so important. There was a guy I played with, I definitely want to have him on later. His name's Curtis Cron, who was the University of Calgary Dino with myself during the 2016 season. This guy, he was always well aware of the life after football. And honestly, I think he was more prepared for it than any other person I've ever seen. And so when the transition happens to life after football, it's not like it was like nothing at all. It was seamless. And I think that, yes, at the same time, you don't want to take yourself away from the mindset you need to succeed at that high level of your sport. But subconsciously, you got to be real with yourself and understand, hey, part of why I need to be part of what's driving me to be so successful and motivate me is that there is no guarantee. There is no tomorrow. I could have to just be a regular person in society again after this. So that's what's got to drive me to keep going with what I'm doing. And as soon as it's taken away from me, and if it's out of my control, then that's it. And there's nothing I can do with it. And it's like true love, It may come times without number, but the only people that really don't benefit from it are the ones that resent it when it leaves, right? So you got to understand it may go, and you can't control it, and you got to go, okay, I'm so grateful. Like, I am so grateful I got the opportunity to play football for 6 years after high school when I'd only played 1 year of high school football. Not even at the highest level. 1, right? And there was moments during my career where I felt this bitterness or this resentment and feeling upset, that I was owed things or whatever. And as time went on, I slowly realized, hey, there's going to be a lot of BS that happens. There's going to be a lot of things that happen out of your control. It's got to be grateful for the experiences that you've had, the people you've met, the things you've done, the things you've learned, and then utilize all the positives from that going forward and learn from the lessons from the negatives rather than be situated in. And you tell me, how many guys have you met that still live with the resentment or the bitterness or the anger of their football career, and that, life owed them this and they owed them that and they should have went to the league and this and that and F this person and they screwed me and blah, blah, blah. How many people do you know that are like that, even to this day?
There's a few. I absolutely won't name names, but yeah, it's natural to feel those feelings,
Sure.
but that comes from, I think not having dealt with the emotions of that experience, right? So I think the quicker that you can be brutally honest with yourself about how your whole experience went, then you'll be able to kind of move on from that and be content and just accept it for what it is, whatever your experience was. But it does start with internalizing and, again, just being honest with yourself and what did I do that led to this, and how did my actions affect my overall experience, right? And I think a lot of people struggle with taking accountability for themselves and instead pointing the finger at, oh, they did this, so my experience wasn't what I thought it should be. I think like another good speaker, Gary V on social media, he's huge on accountability and saying that you're responsible essentially for everything that happens in your life. And it might be a bit of an extreme way to look at it, but I do agree to a certain extent of what he's saying, in that that you're directly responsible for how your experience of being an athlete goes. And it's all about having a healthy perspective and like knowing yourself, to put it shortly, and holding yourself accountable to your actions and your experience.
Absolutely. And I 100% wholeheartedly agree, especially when it comes to playing at the highest level. The more business-like it becomes, the less personal it is. But I still think, and I have, and many other players have struggled with trying not to take it personally, but still finding that part of human nature just gripping them a little closer to taking things personally, or to feeling attacked or upset or hurt, or that it's, it's them versus the world, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that it's important to understand that, it's a game, but it is also just a game. But both those statements can be true. I remember Tim Grover, go back to him, talked about that in an interview that he had on YouTube about, what is your mindset? Is it a game or is it just a game? And I think that there has to be a balance between the two, and there has to come a point where you can shift from one to the other. And I think that success is not necessarily limited to rewards, trophies, titles, status. While those can be markers of success, is it really success if you're not happy? Or is it really success if it's coming at the cost of relationships in your life? Or is it really success if it's coming at the cost of your health, right? An example would be this. Kobe Bryant lived one of the greatest NBA careers ever, right? People could argue he's the greatest ever, or that he would beat Michael Jordan, or he wouldn't, or whatever it may be. And then his life passes before us super tragically, and it's all gone. So, and the things that I really like about what he did with his career after his career, his playing career, the short time that time span that there was, him talking about, I'm Gianna's dad, right? Like, or like, rather than saying I'm Kobe Bryant and look at me and I'm so godlike and blah, blah, blah. And you see the twist, right? This phrase, I'm a girl dad. And now the positive transformation of fathers due to the influence of Kobe Bryant being even more enamored by how proud they are of having daughters. Could one argue not that is more successful than any of the titles and the things that he did on the court, second in scoring, whatever it may be? The legacy, the things afterwards, the transformation, those things, could they not also be success? How do you see success yourself in terms of what you've experienced after football and what you were thinking during your football career, and if your mindset on success has changed?
Oh, I think that's a great question. And I think that definitions of what we deem, success or successful, it changes over time. And it does go back to your value system and what you cherish most in life. And, to me, I guess, success is, I don't want to just say being happy with who you are. Like there's more than that, but if you're excited every day when you wake up and you've got a pep in your step, or you're very excited and motivated about what you're doing, and you're content with who you are as a person, to me that's success. I don't think I'll ever attribute success to material wealth or anything like that. But again, I think it's something that changes and grows over time. So, 5 years from now, maybe I have a different perspective, who knows? But that's a part of success is, are you continuously growing as a person? Are you stuck in your rigid ways and your rigid ways of thinking? So, I'd say, continuous growth, happiness, and I like
Mindfulness?
Yeah. Oh, I think mindfulness would help you reach success. I wouldn't actually say, it's a part of success, but yeah, it's a very, I guess to close, it's a very subjective term, and everybody kind of has their own perspective on what is successful, or what is success and who is successful and whatnot. Yeah.
And those are definitely great words and a great perspective to have, and that success is a term in itself, that is subjective for sure. And that, if you're getting by and enjoying what you're doing, you don't have all this wealth and material gain, is that not the same level of success that person may feel as someone such as a Michael Jordan when they were winning 6 titles with the Bulls, right? So it's not one is more successful than the other. There may be societal markers that deem this is more successful than that, but internally, I think that's what matters more than, oh, well, Michael Jordan did this, so he's automatically way more successful than anyone else. At basketball, sure, there's markers, right? But,
I think to add to that too is, a part of success could be not needing any external validation of who you are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you know who you are, then what else matters, right? If you know who you are and what you're doing and you're okay with that, then you don't need anyone else to tell you otherwise, or you don't need anyone else to revalidate that for you. You're not clinging your success and the idea of yourself and your view of yourself to the words and actions of other people, right?
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it.
So Dylan, we got just about out of time here on Huddle Up. So I'm going to ask one last question to you, and we're going to get the great insight of the great Dylan Schrot here on our hindsight and on our views of all the things we've talked about. So if you were to give advice to your younger self at the beginning of your junior career, based on everything you've experienced, what would it be and why?
Stay in the moment, enjoy it as much as you can, because it's going to go by quicker than you think. And I guess I focus on enjoying the experience as much as you can, and try to build lifelong relationships. And yes, I love competition, and winning is great, and winning is fun, and all of that. And I commend people that really fixate on that and winning and having that mindset. But, you know, for me, I guess I would tell my younger self to, you know, try to, you know, I kind of already said it, but, you know, stay in the moment and enjoy the experience, because, you know, at the end of the day, you know, win or loss, it's going to be the best years of your life. So instead of, you know, having anxieties about the outcomes, stay present, focus on the execution, and the rest will take care of itself.
100%, Dylan. Always appreciate the wise words, and I want to thank you for joining us today on episode 7 of Huddle Up, and make sure to look forward to much more of your success as an assistant coach with the receivers of the Bisons and whatever your other endeavors are. Thank you again so much for joining us, and thank you for huddling up.